The heroes gathered around Thor for one last stand against Gizbar, but he knew the truth. He wasn't just a hero. He was Thor's little babysitter using the special kind of magic that keeps things safe. That mysterious name was called for the support magic, so nobody in the world would ever know its real importance. Even if the universe refuses to let him take the credit for what he truly knows, Thor always keeps his promise of fighting to keep his friends safe. During that terrifying fight against the Demon King, Thor handed his teammates their shield and gave them holy power to do extra good while they were on the run. 10 years later, he's teaching support spells at the Villain Magic Academy. Ever since his classmates turned into professors or associate professors, Thor has been forced to work as a regular teacher, chasing down the mundane tasks of cleaning up and taking care of everyone else. Thor didn't want a life like this one, yet he knew the odds were stacked in his favor anyway. It's a secret that nobody knows about, because in real fights, people don't notice how powerful support spells actually are. Magic attacks finish down the enemy so quickly that there's usually nothing left to support them against. Despite the support spells being strong enough to fix minor issues, those magical items crafted by adventurers simply took over their original purpose almost instantly. Because people thought magic only babysits others and made Thor's reputation so bad that his students vanished, leaving just one behind while walking through school halls where teachers dumped their stuff on him since there was nothing to do for them. Even when they told him to clean the courtyard because students messed up, he returned to his office thinking it might be time to retire, but then he decided to finish the work first before quitting. Just as he was about to leave, he spotted some boys harassing a girl in the hallway. As he stares down the girl he's picking on, he suddenly sees her alone in his classroom, the very last person watching him learn. Raina Ernetz is being bullied by Gibold Zackberg. Gibold knocks her down so she can't see the man he wants to have sex with. Gibold knows that Thor cares for him, yet he refuses to let the monster get hurt with force. Thor hops onto the table and leans in, his voice soft but clear, so he asks gently, "What's on your mind?" Gibold snaps back at Thor with a grin, laughing while he mocks the giant for not even looking up at his face. The dwarves were teasing Thor about his powers, referring to himself as an unnecessary wizard. He's making a big fuss about getting into trouble with the others when Thor steps up to say Raina isn't comfortable at all. Gibold was turning his anger on at Thor because he knew this was about to happen. Thor simply said he knows this detail, but told Gibold that learning magic at the academy is just for anyone with a chance to enter it, regardless of how high their rank or birth might be. Thor laughed at Gibold and explained that his status as a count's son doesn't matter at all. What truly counts is whether they can actually get into the school. Gibold snaps and vows to fight him even if it means stepping into the heroes group, or even his teacher's side, but Raina catches the punch with a firm hold, squeezing Gibold's arm and sending a wave of pain through him. Then Ray decides Thor shouldn't worry about her since she's the brainless guy's target. Yet Thor says he can't stand watching her. Finally, Ray proposes they team up in a magic duel to defeat Gibold and his two minions. Ray assures Gibold that if he actually wins the fight, then he'll have to marry her. The air was thick with excitement as Thor landed on the ground, his eyes wide behind his helmet, and instantly realized what a joke he had just played for her. She didn't even flinch. She looked up at him like she knew exactly where it went wrong, completely unbothered by the thunderous impact that followed. Gibold steps forward with a smile, knowing he has everything, but then Ray whispers that marriage is such a big deal and tells Thor she shouldn't be throwing promises around carelessly. She turns back to him gently and asks him just what they need to do to win again, because the guys won't bother her if she gets it right first time. Gib is trying to stop Ray from saying bad things again, but she doesn't care anymore. She just walks away, telling Thor that everything will be fine because he won't put the pressure on him either. Without any time lost, she runs straight for Gibold and his team, making sure only Thor takes her part while she tackles Gibold directly. Thor feels terrible when he learns that Ray thinks his magic might be useless to save her from the storm, so he apologizes for being too smart by telling her she can make the right call and won't hurt her anymore. Ray runs toward the sky in excitement, shouting goodbye to Thor as he grabs his friend Gibold. Thor throws his heavy staff hard and drops it on the floor right next to Ray, who is already frozen in place by the force of the impact. The spell is finally working, and Ray admits it. Instead of boosting the heroes, Thor turns around and drags Gibold's weak minions away from him with a quick twist of his wrist. Gibold dodged the threat before Thor could hit Raina's blade. Yet as she sliced through the blaze with a straight shot and Gibold nearly spotted her, the moment Ripper stepped in front of the dying hero and asked, "Do you still want to keep going?" Ray just pushed the blade right through his throat so he couldn't stop fighting. Then Gibold, knowing it was too late to save him, gave up and let his minions see how they should have been treated like prodigies. Meanwhile, Thor looked impressed by Raina's moves, while Gibold was dragged away from training grounds promising to make Ray pay for what she did. Then Thor suggests the trip be over, and Ray nods in agreement to let him go. They were unaware that their hidden secrets had been seen by the Academy's headmaster. Later on, Thor gets summoned to the headmaster's office and immediately faces the worst of it all. His greatest surprise is that the headmaster fires him out. Shocked down to his bones, Thor realizes why he was fired and tries to explain everything about Reyna and Gibble to him. The headmaster snaps back, admitting he tolerated Thor because he came from before, but now the Academy has no budget for support magic. He tells Thor that the Academy is basically useless and won't let anyone like him again. As Thor freezes in shock, like he just received a heart-blowing bullet, he knows this could happen anytime, since support magic disappears every single day. The headmaster admits, "I was fired not for my fight with Count Zachberg's son, but because I knew the headmaster would use money to let me go. Maybe Gibbled's dad sends a lot of money," and Thor gets mad at the idea that he can't stop all of it. The headmaster slammed the table hard, ordering Thor to stay quiet while Gibbold tried to turn the tables on Reyna, who was still a student in the same moment. The headmaster insists that sticking to old ways will stop the Academy from growing, so he decides to make a deal for money, equipment, extra staff, and more prestige. Seeing Thor not fit anymore, he tells him students are being judged by status rather than merit, but Thor asks why the headmaster isn't answering his question at all. He knew he was wrong, yet he told Thor he had no choice but to flee the Academy right away. Realizing he couldn't sway the headmaster's heart, Thor begged for a last word about Reyna, though the master screamed that he didn't care about a random student. The master ordered Thor out of his office, and Thor found himself forced to walk quickly away from him. When Thor finally felt like giving up and walked out of the office alone, a sudden rush of help came over him as he ran straight into Reyna. She wasn't just there to thank him. She was right there to celebrate his victory over Gibbled. Thor tells Ray there's nothing to thank him for, then reveals his last class is over, so she figures he got fired just like everyone else. Thor steps forward and tries to shield her from the weight of his own past mistakes by pointing out that he already has plans to leave, yet he finds it hard to shake off Reyna's offer to join him at the lecture hall, saying she's genuinely glad he could still help. Thor hears this and instantly snaps into a serious state as he grabs Ree's hand, whispering firmly not to let her throw away her dream. He reminds her of her talent and insists she must stay in the Academy until graduation so she never ends up like him. Then, Reyna steps back calmly, telling Thor that he doesn't need to worry about it because she already has enough credits to finish school. Thor is stunned by how quickly Ray has caught up, knowing his student was always gifted despite never seeing the skill at this level. Ray worries her teacher might leave soon while telling him she's in great shape for school. But Thor doesn't care, confident that with such a quick brain, he will always have enough time to follow through on his plan. As Reyna walks away from the Academy, Thor calls her and tells her that his magic helps anyone who needs support and wishes she could make it all work out. The next day, Thor packs everything he wants to leave with no regrets, but is stuck where he was supposed to go. He doesn't have enough money to get around, so instead of going to sleep in the house, he goes wandering like a true adventurer just to see what life has to offer. Suddenly, Ray appears behind him and asks, "What are you planning?" Nervously, Thor replies that he wants to wander just as he did when he was an old adventurer. Just then, Ray hands him a letter telling him to show it to the palace guards if he ever goes to the capital. Thor is shocked by this news because, really, he has no business in such a place. Ray reveals she has an acquaintance at the palace who respects Thor deeply, so she tells him that someone might help Thor get his job. Thor is relieved when he hears it, seeing how much Ray does for him. He takes the letter from her and goes their separate ways. A few days later, Thor heads to the imperial capital where he meets Emperor Heinrich, bowing respectfully before being told to ignore the formalities and just stare him straight in the eye. Before meeting Heinrich, Thor followed Reyna's instructions carefully. When he arrived at the palace, he handed the letter to a guard who immediately noticed it. He smiled at Thor, telling them they were waiting for him again. The maids immediately took him to the palace to get him a fancy cake and herbal tea, making sure he felt special. Then the butler showed up and started leading Thor around the castle, so it all felt like a fun adventure. Thor stared at the old man with eyes wide open because his kindness felt so strange. Then he found himself meeting the Emperor not as a visitor, but as someone who truly understood why he had to be treated that way. As the Emperor chuckled and spoke lightly about Thor's modesty, Thor quickly realized that everyone else was just following the rules, while he was waiting for an invitation that would change everything. The Emperor asks if it's a mistake, and the Princess Elena arrives with news that the letter came from Ree's friend. Thor is stunned by the revelation, bowing deeply to Elena before she blushing gently tells him he doesn't need to apologize for knowing her secret identity. She suggests showing him his room because he's been exhausted from traveling long distances, and she is ready to answer any question Thor might ask. Finally, the Emperor lets Thor go, trusting his daughter with his future. After leaving the throne room, the two sit down to talk. Thor addresses Elena formally, but Elena tells him to take away the formalities, assuring him he can call her by name. Thor is still not comfortable with this, since he cannot just call a princess by her name. Then Thor asks Elena if she truly knows him, since this is what her friend claims. Elena smiles, telling Thor that he might not be aware of the fact Thor once saved her life. And from that moment, Elena has adored him. In addition to adoring Thor, she claims she wants to seek his guidance. However, being a princess made it impossible, which is why she truly envies Reyna, who got to sit one-on-one with Thor. Thor is flattered by the princess and tells her that his abilities might not be up to what she thinks. Elena then tells Thor to stop being modest. She knows that Thor is like this because Reyna mentioned it. Ray laughed at the news that his lectures were interesting, finding it so funny that he started dreaming of class sections with Reyna. The joy in his heart nearly made him cry, and then Elena asked him about a job. He said yes. Elena sees Thor about to reveal his secret and asks, "Can you really find something that makes sense?" He laughs and says, "Yes, I can figure it out." Then she adds, "And when the imperial capital gets too busy with everyone trying to do things for them, will you be willing to become a court magician?" It's like a bombshell hit when this job proposal arrives, because Thor isn't ready for what could be his next big move. Elena tells Thor to confirm what she said, so the situation can be resolved. She reminds him of her plan. He will go to court as a soldier where magic will solve all problems, but housing and food are already guaranteed for him. To make sure he pays for everything, she also gives him 100 gold coins as his salary. Thor is stunned by this offer. Even though one coin lasts a month, the amount feels like a fortune to someone who has never earned it before. The punchline hits Thor like a hammer to the head, leaving him speechless. When Thor leaves Elena's office, he treats her proposal with a casual grin, but remembers he already ate the food she gave him earlier. Since he owes her money, he must be careful about what he needs to do now. Just as he reaches the door of his room, he sees a lady standing there. Thor looks down at her as she waves enthusiastically, but his eyes widen with surprise to see Reyna standing right there. He hesitates, unsure if he can trust his own judgment, while Ray insists she has already known her old self before leaving for Paris. Then Thor stepped forward and asked her if she truly quit her university studies. She smiled at the paper while standing by the door, realizing with a smile that she had finally earned her degree. Reyna helped Thor with a high-stakes fight so he could take a job at the court instead of staying in school, but it turned out his feelings for her were way too strong for what she offered as magic support. Ray tells Thor she'll be okay and that she's actually prepared to help him handle every problem. When Thor was stunned by the news of Reyna's court mage status, Elena sent him to university so he could improve her skills. Now he worries that Princess Reyna would hate her for quitting, but then Ray finally told him, "You don't need to worry about anything because I'm here to support you in everything. Just stop acting formal and tell me how you're doing." He was struck by the shock of the line that said formalities, yet Ray gently told Thor to loosen up before he could hurt himself again. Thor just said, "I have no choice but to accept," while Ray jumped up in excitement, pointing out exactly what a court mage can do. They both knew it was completely free to go on holiday or start shopping everywhere, because they were not afraid of asking for permission when they wanted to. Thor was stunned by hearing about the job, wondering if it could be called one thing when Ray denied it but blamed Elena instead. It turns out the court mage serves the princess and royal family, though they mostly work under the command of Elena, who rarely gives orders. Yet, during war, these mages obey the division commander's instructions. Suddenly, Thor realized that without any order, there is nothing to do, and Reyna confirmed this just then. Ray suggested they go to see the division commander instead. It was a quiet moment in the hallway when the door opened just right, letting Reyna walk through with her own way of speaking before the heavy oak doors slammed shut behind them. The door behind the glass screen opens, and a voice from within whispers, "Enter." Ray and Thor step into the room, where Benaid, the deputy commander from Zoxburg, sits alone in a chair surrounded by two girls. Ray is not fond of Badon, and explains that she sent Thor over because he has now become a court mage. Badon's face lights up in shock, telling the two that he hasn't heard anything about assigning a new court mage. And then Badon told Reyna he hadn't heard or seen her before yet. She asked when she turned into a court mage, saying it was only 3 years ago, before showing Fatai his old badge right before he believed everything. Ray looks down at the bad news about her tasks and asks Thor, "Who hired you?" He replies that it was the princess herself, and Ray explains she wasn't supposed to do these work on duties yet. While the Badon thinks about this for a moment before revealing he never heard from his division commander, Ray is sure they are heading to get there. Finally, the commander reveals the absence of him, so Badon knows why he holds the reins right now. Even though Reyna doesn't like Fatty, she still tells him they would be thrilled to work with him. However, Badon says he hasn't yet agreed to hire Thor because recruitment belongs to him. Basically, no one can become a court mage without his approval. Ray is shocked when hearing this, asking if he's trying to break the princess's orders. Elena laughs at the absurd twist Badon threw at her, saying she was only pretending she wasn't disobeying him. But he doesn't think hiring someone with zero experience is fair, yet Bon insists that disobeying the princess would destroy all magic court mages under her rule. Ray tells Betten she should leave before talking to a division commander, but that plan just makes Betten furious, and Thor decides to solve it by speaking softly instead. He asks Bon if it's really about testing his skills to see if he fits the role of court mage, which Bon confirms by saying yes, while also telling Thor he looks useless. Then Badon insists on accepting that this is just how he tests his abilities because he was given chance. Finally, when he asks what those abilities are, he reveals he can use support magic. Thor stepped forward with a grin as Badon's laughter grew louder, knowing that the test was almost certainly in sight right now, but he promised he'd step down if his powers didn't prove strong enough to keep him alive. A Badman's boss tells the hero to show off under pressure, but the giant simply nods and lets go, handing the heavy burden back so the brave one can do everything right without worrying about losing himself along the way. So soon after that, all the people who are looking for jobs come together at the office. A loud ringing bell draws attention, but Thor finds his usual excitement gone because he's been standing there for an hour without seeing anything happen until Giblet, a participant by choice, starts trash-talking someone and a female. Standing right beside him is Badon, the deputy commander who turns out to be Giblet's trash father. He tells Gibble not to worry about Reyna, since she isn't threatening him. Gibble says all day that nothing can change it, calling himself the future division commander until he suddenly notices Thor is also with Reyna. Sweat trickled down his face in terror as he realized he was likely just being cooked by Thor. Instead of fleeing, he turned to Reyna and grabbed her hand, which sent a sudden flashback through his mind showing just how they'd fought together before. Then Gibbold dashed over to his father, begging him what's wrong while his confused family member began questioning everything. A simple word of news slipped through the air when he handed his father a letter. "I am quitting my dream of becoming a court mage." His dad pulls back and yells, "Stop spewing nonsense." The goblin's endless giggle was a loud sound as the monster finally said he was finished. And then Badon looked at Thor with curiosity as the legendary warrior raised his own hand to tell his friend Fatty nothing had happened. It turned out only they had been having an intense fight while still in school. Badon gasped loudly as he saw Gibble hiding behind him, screaming that he had nothing more to do with the exam and just needed to get out before someone else saw them together. He grabs Thor's hands and shouts, "Examination begins." Then he points to the sky before the old man takes his place in the ring. Thor laughs helplessly as he begs the court mages for a favor, thinking the new recruits are just waiting to give him a chance at glory. Behind Velger stands Badon, who confidently delivers the news of the Royal Knight's newest recruit. The rookie soldier didn't even get a chance at getting a good battle review because they got a terrible one. Badon then reveals to Thor that his partner will be a mighty shield-wielding warrior ready to clash head-on with Velger and Gibbled. The new recruit stumbles into her own bones hearing Badon form for her, while Reyna also goes stunned because Velger is such a strong man even though he's only 20 years old. Ray can't help but be annoyed that he's being sent after a rookie so much, thinking the difference between them is far too great. Then Bedin interrupts by saying victory isn't the main thing, and he'll treat it leniently when deciding the assessment. Thor smiled gently at Mia Valberg as he stepped forward for her introduction. She hesitated, revealing that her name was actually Mia Valberg, the eldest daughter of the Baron of Valberg, who had passed his Royal Knight's exam 6 months ago and arrived in the capital just moments after. Ray revealed she was a good shield woman, but couldn't finish her own mission alone. Thor got angry when he heard that bluntly, so Ray told him what she should say or keep quiet. Meanwhile, Mia was nervous about being fired and worried she'd drag Thor down, even though Velger was just second to the Knight Commander. But then Ray told Mia to stop saying nonsense because they were going to lose with Thor. She turned back to tell Thor he would support her while he went on an ambush. Mia feels so inspired by Thor's promise to support her, which motivates her to give Thor a big, confident fist bump saying, "I'll do my absolute best." But during those tough calls at the station, Gibbold kept shivering while scolding himself for admitting how scared he actually was. Gibble can't get over the fear of facing Ray, so he tells his dad she's scary. Then Badon tells his son that Ray isn't his rival, and Gibble just wins out by being a nobody against Velger, even though Badon says there's no way for him to win. His father's words gave him a big boost of courage, and he laughed as he said that his win was guaranteed. Bedan tells Gibbold he can kill his enemies if he wants, and he smiles at him while assuring him that trash will follow both of them. Meanwhile, Velger keeps a tight hold on Thor, because even though he knows Gibble has talent, he still fears being the man he isn't yet. It looks like his character in Thor isn't quite right at all. Badon announces that the exam is now a proper battle format, where participants can wield any magic or weapon available to them, and even surrender if they feel defeated. As he speaks, he turns to Thor's partner and smiles. Ray watches with worry because she knows Velger could be very powerful. He was once said to have slain 2 dragons that are dangerous enough for him alone. Ray believes Badon is the most worthy opponent there can ever be against, even though everyone else seems unable to match Velger's strength. The duel starts, and Gibbold erupts with a massive fireball, telling Thor he isn't afraid of him as long as Ray isn't visible. He launches the spell at his foes, but Thor screams at Mia, insisting that flame spells are useless if they can stop landing. While he tries to delay the casting, he instantly targets Gibbold's fire spell and unleashes a purging spell to neutralize it. Gib gasps as he stares at the smoke in his mind and wonders if he's still alive or if this thing really just vanished right then. Velger looks utterly stunned by the chaos while Gibbold lunges, but his shield saves him from a fatal blow as Thor proves himself an extraordinary force of nature. Though he believes Thor is no ordinary person, Velger's resolve shifts immediately when he screams at Mia, warning her not to let him handle what he intends to do. Thor thinks gear will make it harder for the debuffs, but he chooses to boost Mia's strength instead. He instantly snaps his weapon on her, and then lets go, knowing she now stands tall with a stronger shield called the Iron Wall. Mia freaks out when she finds herself being told to use her shield against a mighty warrior named Felger, who's about to unleash an attack that will tear apart her home. Felger's sharp blow hits the shield just as suddenly as Thor's helps Mia, but once she holds it down, Thor instantly realizes that Felger's relentless strikes won't let her stand. He then turns his gaze to Gibbold, delivering a powerful spell that throws him into dreamland before he can get back up. Badon is shocked when his son crashes into the ground and begins screaming in rage as he tries to stop the duel. Meanwhile, Reyna steps behind him with a simple spell and takes away his voice entirely. However, Velger continues slashing at Mia's shield while Thor casts spells to slow him down. But Velger's sword technique is so powerful that it cancels Thor's attacks before they can activate. Since he can't stop Velger from debuffing him, Thor decides to help Mia by screaming at her mace and casting a heavy strike spell on it. Mia smashes the mace hard, sending a blinding flash of light everywhere around her as she falls, while Velger realizes his move isn't quite strong enough to knock her down and immediately ducks away, sprinting toward Thor in pursuit. Thor saw his shield falling apart because he couldn't see himself in it, so he cast a spell around him. Though Velger's attack hurt him, his sword shattered into pieces as if nothing happened, causing him to admit that Thor is far beyond a mage and Mia had training to do. They headed straight to the headquarters while Mia stood up straight, smiled brightly, and bowed before leaving. Ray rushes over to Thor to celebrate her victory with him, congratulating him on passing his exam while thanking the lady beside him. Suddenly, Badon shouts that the exam isn't over yet, claiming it's not just one match, and telling Thor he must pass the next trial before he can trash his dream of becoming a court mage. Ray and Thor are both upset to hear this news, though Thor doesn't argue and assures Ben that he is ready to face the next trial as well. Ray feels a mix of shock and terror as Thor tells her that strength can be anything, but then goes on to reveal he wants to prove his worth as a court mage by testing her against the very person who knows how to make her feel safe. Meanwhile, Badon laughs at the situation and points to a stranger whispering, "Beat Thor," which makes Ray start to panic just thinking about what she has to do next. It turns out that the person who Bond pointed at was actually a famous court mage called Luna. Bedin tells Luna she must be the commander's daughter, so she can learn what a good fighter looks like, but he insists she fight Thor anyway, even if it means doing a little more work for him. Luna scoffs at Bedan's suggestion and insists he fight himself against Thor instead, making it look like a tough battle while he enjoys the victory. Bedan knew Luna couldn't lose to Thor because he was just a support mage, so he saw it as an opportunity to bury his annoying daughter while turning things around in dirty hands. As Luna walked up to him, she asked if he was the applicant since he looked old. Thor nodded and noticed that Luna was channeling mana into her staff, which told him she was experienced. Luna flinched when Ray said she was an old man on their first meeting and immediately commended Thor for treating her with respect, even though Ray scolded Luna for calling Thor old in the beginning. Luna screamed in rage when she heard someone tell her that being an adult means having the power to make a difference, because she felt completely powerless before. The Luna flickered with a bright green glow as she stepped forward, lighting up her staff like a beacon in the dark. She also throws a spell, setting up for the final blow. He figured out that a spell couldn't break through Luna's defenses just because she was tougher than Velger, so instead of using his own spells to cancel her magic, he had to rely on something stronger and more powerful to stop her from even trying. Luna strikes a massive water blast toward Thor and says the real fight is about to start. As she casts Mega Aqua, Thor stumbles back wondering what he should do. But Luna does something wild by unleashing super high-level elemental magic all at once. She doesn't make him fear. Instead, she impresses him with her powerful display of powers before he even knows the battle has begun. He realized Luna reminded him of someone he knew because her unique talents made her so special to him. A stranger joined him when he first became a hero. The guy who started learning magic around the same time as Thor suddenly outmatched him, making Thor jealous for having no special talent to fight him. Since Thor couldn't even reach the top of the competition without a superpower, he decided to use his raw strength and power instead to protect his team and help them climb up. But in the end, it all turned on Thor because he was left behind simply because he wasn't useful enough. He watched his past days fade away until he finally found himself staring down the line, ready to dive into another fight with all his might. Thor felt like the battle was going too well until he finally had to run from a hit by lightning. But everything was perfectly planned out before the explosion turned into chaos. He cast stealth to blind Luna completely, then used acceleration to hide his own speed just for a moment. When Luna caught him, Thor struck her with surprising force, revealing the mess she made on her face and turning her back onto the fight. Banan stepped forward to stop the duel and declared Thor had won. But he wasn't truly impressed because he still got the advantage over someone who could crush magic if she tried hard. The sky shimmers with a strange, glowing circle that makes Thor jump as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Thor stumbles upon Luna, floating high above him, while the lightning spell from their duel still glows bright, forcing him to check if this is just a wild curse. He quickly steps in front of her and tells her to throw her staff up so she can see what he's doing. But Luna isn't listening and thinks she could fly away even without the spell. She nearly launches her staff at lightning, but the spell never ends. Even though she misses her target, she throws it into a magic circle where it snaps shut before anyone gets there. Thor rushes out to grab her before she even hits the ground. Thor holds Luna like a precious bride, making her feel shy as she tries to pull off a defense for why she should have stopped the spell. Thor screams at him to let her go since it's over, but when he finally drops her, Luna immediately starts bragging about how much he saved her. Thor stands in stunned disbelief while Luna walks away, promising to crush his every move next time they fight. Meanwhile, Beden gets furious that Thor won again and tells Thor there is no way he will accept him. Suddenly, knights in golden armor burst to the venue to deliver a royal decree demanding he be taken. They tell Badon that he has been given a warning for embezzlement of public funds, bribes to the Magic University, and abuse by the Court Mage Division. Without wasting time, they slam him into chains as he tries to claim innocence while ordered to face his punishment at the Emperor's hands. While Badon's face darkened as he was pushed off the train, he kept begging that he wasn't guilty of everything charged against him. Ray gasped in disbelief at how low he dropped, and Thor sighed with disappointment when he saw Badon had actually managed to climb the ladder for a vice commander job instead of falling. Reyna smiles at Thor as they talk about how she told him to forget the corrupt man, but he still worries that he isn't qualified. She then says he was appointed by a princess and hopes he passes the exam fairly and completely. Ray assures Thor that his support magic is truly unrivaled, so he retires to his room after passing the exam, even though it wasn't a formal test. He sighs heavily of relief at hearing a voice ask if she can come in, thinking instantly that it must be Reyna and telling her to enter. Just then, Elena walks into the room, apologizing for the vice commander's rudeness and his disappointing actions. Realizing that he misjudged the voice, Thor uses an acceleration spell to get off his bed and runs to Elena to bow to her and offer his greetings. Thor stepped into the hallway with a grin on his face as he hit his foot hard, sending waves of pain through the floorboards. The princess immediately told him not to act too formally when talking to her. Instead, she gave him a chair right there and waited for him. After Thor asked if she had summoned him, she replied that no. But when he explained that Elena was truly upset about failing his exam, it made her look very disappointed. He admitted he wasn't sure whether he could be a court mage, yet he smiled because he knew the prize was won. Hearing all of this, Elena cheered and asked how he felt. Thor blushed with pride as he showed she could handle anything, while at the same time, he was thrilled that there were other mages in the palace who would admire his showmanship. Elena laughs as her friend says the exam felt like a test, then jokes they have a crush on Luna. When the princess hears that, she flinches because he was never asked to be cool. Suddenly, she feels so flustered she starts blushing over and over again. Elena tells him to stop being shy and gets his confidence back, but before he can breathe easy, she says goodbye with a final warm-up hug. Then, the news hits. Reyna wants her hand in marriage, and, after a long time, the princess just whispered it all over again. Thor is still freaking out as Ray steps into the room to tell him everything else. Thor was stunned by Reyna's arrival when Ray politely apologized for startling him, but explained she only wanted to say hello. Ray handed Thor a fresh chiffon cake from her oven since it turned out perfect, and happily told him she would make this his special celebration feast. Ree's heart sinks as she sees the cake arrive, but when Thor says Ray loves his support magic, she feels a deep warmth in his eyes and decides to stay close while he cooks. Yet, once they start working together, the bitter realization hits that Thor isn't quite as awesome as she thought. He wants her to keep believing him is cool, even though he's already sobbing with joy because Ray knows it's not enough for him. Ray asked his friend if he wanted another slice of cake, but Thor said yes to her request. Elena finally found herself sitting in a quiet room late at night, watching her entire life end as the only people left are the gods who have retired early to sleep. She spends hours sketching in a book made just for Thor, blushing furiously as she tries to capture every flicker of his brilliant and chaotic expression while learning how he saved Luna. Determined to keep the magical moments fresh in her mind, Elena meticulously records each detail from that pivotal rescue to ensure no other version of him slips away, choosing wisely who to swap with when the day ends. She treats Thor not just as a student, but as her greatest teacher, holding every happy moment he earns so dear to her heart. At the corner of her drawing book sits that terrible picture of Gibble's father, who is so annoying. She wishes to marry Thor, yet she desperately needs to help him earn a noble title before doing anything else. She knows that marriage is Thor's final word on this matter. As she lies down to sleep, her mind drifts back to baking something special for him. Soon after, a powerful mage comes inducted as a court sorcerer. The other mages are left baffled because the vice commander was caught during an exam. They think the vice commander was framed and the whole exam is rigged. From all those eyes on Thor, only Ray smiles when he's inducted. He tells Ray he feels bad for wasting her time, but Reyna counters with a promise to take care of him instead. Thor steps forward and says, "But I mean something completely different." He told Ray that he wanted her to help him clear the weeds so he could earn more, but she insisted he just needs someone to do it anyway, because others are already handling it. Thor can't believe he's going to get 100 gold coins without doing anything, thinking he'd be eaten by a free rotor, but Ray knows exactly what's on his mind and lets him know there's a board of freelance commissions at the court mage office waiting for him. Since Reyna sees herself as just a regular person, she's eager to lead Thor on their journey. On the way there, Thor asks what a freelance commission means. Reyna thinks she didn't explain it before and decides to tell him that a freelance commission is a place where knights and court mages take jobs they can't handle against regular adventurers or guards. The big jobs are turned into royal orders, but small tasks like digging or become freelance gigs where people earn based on how much gold they bring home. There's even a dragon dung test that costs a set amount of silver, and a new drug test pays in gold. Thor was already set on sending Rain to Rogat village when he spotted a strange job coming up. A farmer's crop was choking with poison and dying from it. The mayor has been trying this for 2 years, but the mission is just a regular one because the villagers are still eating public grain. Even though Thor expected this kind of pay as well, Reyna cut in to say something completely different about what's actually happening on the farm. Apparently, adventurers came to find out nothing bad happened and kept hoping the village didn't get wiped out, so they thought it might have been too much trouble for them to leave alone. That's why Thor wants to take on this mission to see if anything can be done, but the other court mages laugh at him while he expects no better return than 1 gold coin. Ray hears them talking about Thor coming back without a clue and laughs along, knowing that Thor is willing to help people as long as it's enough reward for him. When she hears this, Ray smiles and thinks Thor is above all the petty mages who seem so much more concerned with winning the mission than helping anyone else. Thor blushes softly as he tells Reyna to be careful and not stir up trouble among her friends. Thor and Ray soon set off toward the village, though it was only 2 hours away from the big city, so it did take them quite a while. Ray was very sure that Thor's magic would help heal the whole thing, but they had already reported that droughts and poor harvest had caused depopulation there. They reached the gate where a guard stood ready to welcome their guests. Soon they met Graba, who was shocked to see court mages rushing in. The mayor bowed politely to Thor, thanking him for his help, while Thor gently nudged him to keep his head up and not panic about it. Together, they led them into the field where things were worse than anyone had expected. Graba agreed, but said that wind and water couldn't possibly be the cause of the problem. Meanwhile, Ray asked about the soil and told Graba that it had also been checked out with no issues. Grab already concluded that they had angered the holy tree, causing Thor cast a purifying spell with support magic that heals anyone who touches it. But after they touched the poison plant, the poison vanished immediately for a moment before suddenly turning purple again as Thor realized what he had done wrong and went back to finding the source of the toxin. Graba's surprise is fueled by the realization that Thor has claimed this ancient, living relic would be the source of trouble. He tells Graba that since the tree has been there for 2,000 years, it must have spiritual power and no reason to avoid it. They've never stepped near it either. But Graba insists there shouldn't be any problem with it, because people before had checked it thoroughly. Seeing this life-giving wonder in Thor's eyes, he wonders how something so vibrant can suddenly become a source of poison. Then Thor admits he won't go closer to the tree like everyone else. Instead, he will cast a purification spell that lets off some kind of reaction. Finally, Graba agrees to let Thor do whatever he wants as long as he doesn't hurt the holy tree. Suddenly, a ghostly thing sprouts from the roots of the ancient oak and shocks the mighty Thor. As he stares intently, Thor suddenly understands. Those strange creatures aren't real. They are druids who have taken over their homes to become terrifying monsters. Trions aren't strong at all. They rely entirely on the massive branches that hold them up. Right in front of them, the tree suddenly transforms into a gigantic trance, causing Thor to drop his hat in disbelief since he has never seen such a thing before. The whole area fills up with that purple energy, forcing Thor to cast an acceleration spell on Graba, telling him to sprint toward the village. When he turns back, he sees Reyna holding her sword and prepare to take down the trance. Rey tells Thor not to worry about her. Just do what makes sense in this moment. He recalls feeling that same power from when they fought Jibble at school, knowing her sword skills are far above any regular mage. Apparently, only S-rank adventurers handle trances. Thor then tells Rey he will support her while they fight the trance, casting acceleration spells on her to make her move faster and chase it away. A powerful storm howls through the forest as the wind tries to knock her back, yet the ground beneath her cracks open with roots stretching toward the sky before she even has time to scream. So, Thor decides his mission involves pulling the Triant's roots. He casts a spell to make the Triant slow, while Rey is absolutely fast. Even though Rey can move around pretty quickly thanks to her reflexes, Thor doesn't think they have enough energy to take down the Triant yet, so instead of getting carried away by this, he focuses intently on fighting. Thor tries to see past the train and find a weakness, so he tells Rey to focus on the roots while she attacks the main body. Thor is impressed that Rey can read him and think of what they want before even speaking. He admits Rey is one of the best swordsmen he has met as she leaps into the air to assess the tree's structure, figuring out that some branches act like arms. Thor noticed the thickened Triant branches blocking his path, but Rey instantly found her own escape route by slamming into the wall right at Thor's spell range. He just needed to target Rey's sword with his magic before she could get away. Thor laughed so hard he nearly fell when Reyna charged at him with a powerful ice spell. But her teacher had already switched her sword to fire instead of ice because the tree was too smart and would have pulled water up on its own. After Reyna hit it once, she screamed that her teacher is awesome. Then Thor used his switching spell to change the attack element back to fire, thinking he could fool it again, but it turned into shock when the trance sensed the danger coming toward it and laughed until they were too late for Rey. The girl dives for her breath as she smashes against the trunk of the tree, sending a burning fireball through the air and onto the train below. Rey has calculated that her plan will save the village by burning out the trance fire before it can cool down completely, thanks to Rey's incredible magic, the raging flames, and Thor's help. The villagers cheer loudly as they celebrate their victory over this dangerous creature. He's so relieved that Thor finally feels good about himself after sitting out for years to help take down the monsters. He kept a low voice dialing down his battle power so he could focus on casting healing spells instead of killing the beast. Rey steps forward into the fray and grabs onto Thor's arm, shouting, "I do it with the finest craftsmanship." But then she freezes, stunned to find herself standing there while Thor was already working on his next battle. He laughs with a big grin as he sits down on the floor. Reyna and Thor are surrounded by villagers who run over to show off their cool sword skills. Rey feels flustered but tries to deny she did anything, pointing out that the man who actually built everything was Thor. When the angry crowd ignores this and only sees a worn-out figure, Rey turns to him and asks what he thinks is happening. Thor just tells her he is as cool as she is. She's about to start arguing when Graba walks in, apologizing for losing their sacred tree. The mayor stops him saying it's okay, but Graba insists the tree is already cursed by evil and his fault. He then explains the roots are dug up soon, warning that a fire could damage the structure if not fixed instantly. That makes them agree to chop down the tree without hesitation. They grab axes with one another as the tree crashes onto the ground. In no time, Reyna thanks Thor for keeping her safe from the burning village, and the old man apologizes. Graba felt so happy hearing about Thor's victory, so he kindly offered to bring the burnt-down tree back for his thanks. It turns out the villagers have already filled every single hemp sack with their medicines, and then they will sneak them off to deliver to Thor right away. Rey is thrilled because she knows that burning the sacred ash isn't just for fun. It could be a real cure if found in time. In the capital, the black dirt stands as valuable gold dust, Yet Lord Grab admits he spent hours trying to use it for village repairs when the price dropped too low to pay for it all at once. Thor then tells Graba that he is casting a spell to make the ashes grow faster, hoping they will become useful fertilizer instead of worthless trash. The old tree was a brave protector who got rid of its leaves and flowers long ago, so that the villagers could grow their own crops. But now it's time to burn those memories back into the ground to help everyone rebuild their community. Thor tells the town to look at the ashes for free instead of taking them as a reward because he doesn't want anything special for them. He simply wants their help to fix the village's broken parts while explaining that nature isn't his job, so they aren't supposed to expect magic. Ray walked over to the tall tree and asked if anyone had seen it attack yet, even after sitting there for so long. Thor told her all monsters do this, but since no one did, he thought the tree was protecting the village like before. The villagers hugged the tree in thanks. Then they left with Reyna, and the town people bowed to them as they walked out of the gate. Graba said Thor and Reyna are great guys because most heroes won't even stay there after a fight. That night, someone came running and told the mayor that something bad was going wrong. The mayor went where he needed help. He showed him where Thor had given ashes to the villagers, and trees were already sprouting right in front of them. Everyone decided it was the tree's blessing. As they headed toward the capital, Ray struggled to accept all the praise she received from the village. She couldn't believe they were treating her like a princess instead of being kind to. Thor asked what she was doing all day, but she replied quickly, "I'm just a little tired." Then he said, "Let's get you back on track so we can finish this job in time." Thor smiled with the warmth of a soft, warm teddy bear. Ray thinks about evaluating the fertilizer that Thor made in a few months. She knows that even if it takes time, it will be counted as an achievement for Thor once he is Ned and will also help to gain the villagers' trust. Ray is ready to do everything in her power to make sure that everyone recognizes how powerful Thor is. Just then, the thought of marrying Thor crosses her.